Most of us will only have to ask 2 questions. And after we've taken enough interest with those 2 questions, we've given solid statements as our answer, the other person is now going to become interested in us. Dale Carnegie said it best. In order to become interesting, you have to be interested. There's an emotional reason, something else is driving them, right? They had some tragedy happen and they got to sell this house. They need that money so that they can send their kid to college, whatever the case may be. I'm looking for that emotional context because that's where we need to be having the conversation. That's how I'm going to be able to handle it.
What up, masters? Welcome to another episode of Path to Mastery. And if I sound a little strange today, I got this throat thing going on that I don't know what's up. I just can't lose. And I guess that's what happens when you live in New England and you're surrounded by kids all the time. So anyway, that's a blessing. I love my daughters. Listen, here's the thing. I've got a fantastic interview for you today. We have AJ Harbinger, who's from the Art of Charm podcast. He does a great job talking to us about confidence and social skills and what it takes to be charismatic. You know, it's just a fantastic interview. I mean, and this is one of the podcasts that I listen to. It's one of my go-to podcasts. You guys should definitely check it out. It's the Art of Charm. Like I said, just did a great job. Couple things coming up. We've got our Holiday Listings Boot Camp, which starts next Monday on the 20th. So if you want to take your business to the next level during the holidays, let's beat, everybody is in that place where January, February, you're always chasing, trying to get caught up again, no income. We're going to give you the solution to that this year, meaning we're going to take listings from November 20th all through January 1st and go all in. So if you want to join us in that, just go to davidihill.com/holiday listings. Got some great interviews coming up. Got Grant Cardone. Listen, though, for now, I want you to enjoy AJ Harbinger with Art of Charm podcast on confidence, social skills, and charisma. You rock. What up, masters? Welcome to another episode of Path to Mastery. Hey, we've got a special treat for you guys today. We're with AJ Harbinger from the Art of Charm podcast. What's up, AJ?
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, man, super excited to have you. I got this little cold thing going on today, so I do have a lousinger in my mouth if I sound a little different, but I did not want to pass up on the opportunity to get you guys on, so I said I'm going forward to this interview, man. So again, just appreciate you having you here, man. I know you're from the Art of Charm podcast. You guys, I found out you've been doing this for about 11 years. You're over 700 episodes. I just think it's fantastic podcast, man. I have you guys probably the same, right? You have like your go-to podcast, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I have some. You guys are one of my go-to podcasts. Like you guys, I also like James Altucher show, and part of it is because I also like to model some. Like if I look at what top podcasts are doing, I look for ways to model so that I can make my podcast like theirs. So anyway, enough out of me, man. Tell me a little bit about yourself and tell us about Art of Charm podcast.
Yeah, Jordan and I started the show 11 years ago in my basement in Ann Arbor. I was in graduate school at the time studying cancer biology towards a PhD. Jordan was in law school, and we decided to start recording some conversations we had all around getting better socially, making more friends, connecting with women. Started the podcast on kind of a lark, recorded about 6 episodes, and then we decided to launch it at the start of the year. And from there, we realized that we couldn't fill hours and hours of show just on our own. So we wanted to interview successful people who we could learn some interesting stuff from. And slowly but surely, we've started to increase the quality of the guests. And now we have a pretty wide network that helps us funnel great quality guests on the show, where we get a chance to spend 1 hour to 2 hours with them, picking their brain and getting some of our biggest questions answered. So it's been an awesome experience in building that out. And along with the podcast, we have a coaching program that grew out of that, teaching people social skills, how to get over your social anxiety and really connect with people. And I know that that's something that I struggled with growing up. I didn't really have a resource for it. My father wasn't the most outgoing person, and I looked up to him in a lot of ways. So I didn't really find that person to mimic that could make me that extrovert. So over the last 10 years, I've spent a number of hours with my team building out a curriculum that helps our clients, again, connect with people in a more meaningful way.
Excellent, man. And it's interesting, too, how I came across your podcast. Somebody had recommended, you must be familiar with the James Altucher show, right? Yeah,
absolutely. James is a good friend.
Oh, good for you, man. Well, you're gonna have to set me up with a connection with James. But on his show, he had talked about your show, so that's actually how I heard about your show, and I had no idea. Like he just said, you got to go check out this podcast, The Art of Charm. So because James said that, obviously I went and checked it out, and like I said, now it's one of my go-tos. But what is The Art of Charm? Tell us about that. Like, what's that mean? What is the podcast about?
Really, we just wanted to get started with conversation, be able to walk into a room and connect with people and be charismatic. And that was ultimately our goal in starting the show and starting the coaching company, was ourselves to be more charismatic. We saw throughout our graduate school career and starting our actual professional career that people with solid social skills, people with charisma seem to get ahead. And we really wanted to figure out how we, both Jordan and I, could become more charismatic, because we saw how important that was to our success. So we tried to interview people that we've found inspiring and charismatic, and sort of from there pull this information together in a way that allows other people who are introverted to showcase their personality and connect in a deeper way. I know as an introvert myself, the thought of going to a networking event, going out to a social event can feel a little daunting, can feel overwhelming. So for us, it was really important that we focus on building these skills in ourselves and then sharing these skills with others. And now the podcast has grown in such a way that we have celebrities and athletes on, and really the breadth of guests has transformed quite a bit. But in the beginning, the Art of Charm meant social skills, and that's why we have this training course available to the listeners of the show, fans of the show, and ultimately introverts who realize how important it is to be a little more extroverted for their career.
I want to go in a couple different directions with this, and I do obviously want to talk about social skills and confidence and charisma and all that stuff. I also want to kind of get your opinion. I mean, you guys have been doing this for 11 years now, 700 episodes. In my opinion, one of the best podcasts. Everybody listening to this now should go check out the Art of Charm podcast. It's fascinating. What, in your opinion, makes a great podcast?
Well, I think at this point, since everyone can podcast and it's wide open, the field of podcasting has grown over the last 10 years. Anyone with a microphone and a computer can do it. The most important thing is content. And we spend a lot of time cultivating good guests and trying to make sure that we have incredible conversations with those guests so that the listener is compelled to tune in again and subscribe to the show. And at this point, a lot of our guests, they do the rounds on a lot of other shows. So we're always looking for conversations that they haven't had, topics that they haven't touched on. Maybe they mentioned in their book, their autobiography, but they haven't really had a chance to delve into in conversation. So that's number one. Number two, we really focus on actionable advice. I feel like it's very easy to pontificate, and a lot of people's stories are inspiring, but we really want our podcast to transform our listeners' lives. So it's really important for us that any piece of information that is given on our show is something that's actionable. And that's why we have cheat sheets with every show, so that the listeners can go home and start applying these concepts and hopefully build a more successful path in their career and their life.
So obviously the goal is to get really high-level people on the podcast, as well as make it stuff that people can apply, right? Get into action with. And you mentioned cheat sheets, and what are those? Where do you find the cheat sheets?
Cheat sheets are on the website. So basically, obviously the podcast is an hour long, so sometimes it's difficult to make it all the way through. You have stuff going on. So we just take the key points and let you know where those key points are found in the episode, so you can quickly fast forward and jump ahead to the points that are relevant to you. And the other thing I want to say to follow up on that is, we've had some high-level guests that just aren't very conversational, that aren't good on the podcast format. And we've had a number of episodes end up on the cutting room floor, so to speak, that did not get released. So content is king in our mind, and we always spend a lot of time making sure that the conversation is great for us, great for the guests, but then ultimately the listener is going to enjoy the conversation as well. The last thing we want is for our listeners to be bored to tears. And I know if Jordan or I are listening to the guest and we start to get a little bored, we try to take it in directions that are more interesting. And if we can't, then the episode doesn't release. So I know you may have a lot of people listening who are thinking about getting started in podcasting, or maybe they are started or they have their own podcast already. And that's really the most important thing. I feel like when you look at the top tier podcasts, those conversations are always really interesting and always hook the listener so that the listener can gain some value from them. So unfortunately, there are some high-level guests that don't make it on the show because they aren't as entertaining.
Got it. So I'm going to go back to that. Obviously with podcasts now, I think the thing is that's like the new thing, right? AJ, like everybody should have a podcast now. And I think it's also one of the biggest challenges where everybody's having a podcast. So people are like overwhelmed with who do I listen to, right? Should I listen to this podcast or everybody and their brother has one? So it even makes it more important why, when we go back to what you were talking about, like, but if you, let's go back to your high level guest. Let's say I'm interviewing you and you're maybe really, really short and direct with your answers. How do I make that an interesting episode? Or let's say go to the other side where you have somebody that just keeps going on and on and on, and you have to maybe jump in. And how do you handle those situations?
A lot of that is handled in the prep work ahead of time. So we have a show producer and we have a researcher that helps Jordan put together the content that's going to be discussed on the podcast. And essentially, when those moments happen where the guest is maybe talking too much about themselves, just bragging, we always try to take it back to that actionable lesson that someone else can partake in their life and have an impact on them. So we try to shy away from those long-winded stories where the guest is just bragging and instead talk about, what is the real world application to this story? What was the lesson that is taken away? And that's why we look for stories and interesting angles that are in other articles or our other episodes, other podcasts. And then we try to dive even deeper into those areas with, again, a focus on social skills and confidence, because for a lot of our guests, in order to become successful, they had to rely on their network. They had to rely on their social skills to make those connections, to have the conversations that got them ahead. So that's always the angle that we're working towards in these conversations so that, again, the listener can, while they're in their car, while they're driving to work, while they're sitting at home, they can take away an actionable lesson.
Hey, Masters, I want to tell you about a special holiday listings extravaganza I'm putting together, guys, starting November 20th. We're going to go from November 20th through January 1st, and we're going to have 5 call sessions, guys, webinars where I'm going to share with you all the ideas, tools, scripts, and all the best strategies to list homes during the holidays while everybody else, while all the other realtors are sitting back, enjoying themselves, waiting until after the holidays. We're going to go out there and we're going to take all those listings together. Guys, I've been doing it every single year, and I'm going to share the proven techniques with you. So if you're interested in this special program, it's only open to 25 people. Guys, we're going to go all in during the holidays. And don't worry, you'll have some time off to enjoy the family and relax as well. Go to davidihill.com/holiday listings. Again, davidihill.com/holiday listings. I've been doing this for, a year and a half.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's a love-hate thing, I'll tell you. And you guys probably, because it's weekly, it's a commitment, it's time. I've been fortunate to get some really amazing guests too, like Grant Cardone and Mel Robbins, and obviously having you guys on the shows is a treat. But that said, when I listen to the interviews after, like I'm listening and I'm like, man, I should have asked you ever have that time? I don't know if you guys experience this anymore, but where you're listening to the interview and you're like, damn, I missed a question or something.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's any skill you're trying to hone. To be a really good interviewer, you don't just hit publish and then move on to the next interview. You go back, you listen to that interview, you take notes, you think about, hey, what were some things that I missed, so that you start priming yourself the next time. And it really is the same lesson that we give our clients on this boot camp that we run with social skills training, where essentially throughout the week, they're learning how to move the conversation forward, how to connect in a more meaningful way. We videotape them, we play back the video, and we review what they did well, and then we focus on what can they improve. And what happens over time is, first, the interview's happening and you don't know what to say in the moment and you blank, and it's fine. You go back, review it, and then stuff starts to pop to your head like, oh, I could have asked this, I could have asked that. So you write it down. And all you're trying to do is shorten that time from the moment when you're in the interview to that afterthought, so that it's no longer an afterthought. It starts happening seamlessly in the interview. And I know Jordan in particular carves out a number of hours each week to review last week's episodes, and also to watch some of the top interviewers in the world, the Larry Kings, the Charlie Rose, to see what he can embody from what they have been able to build over the course of their, 50 plus year career. So when it comes to interviewing people, it's always a skill that needs to be strengthened and worked on. And I know we also have a few fitness guys that come on, and even though they're in killer shape, they'll tell you, oh yeah, I don't feel that I'm perfect. I have a little bit of fat here. I need to work on this. Oh, this muscle's not as strong. So when you think of it as a work in progress and always just trying to improve and get, 1% better than last week, then you can start to hone this craft into something that makes you that professional and makes you that top tier podcast.
No doubt. Well, and here's the thing. I mean, with me, my podcast is called Path to Mastery. So the philosophy here is we're always on the path to mastery. So I don't believe we're ever going to arrive, right? We can be super high level,
absolutely,
but we're always learning and improving and developing and making changes. And that's why I love, so if I'm listening to an episode and I'm like, man, I wish I asked that question. Now I've at least conditioned myself where if it's in my mind, right? And I think this is what you were talking about when you're doing those interviews, when you're videotaping people, sometimes we have that thing that's in our mind that we have that thought, but yet we don't act on it. Right.
And we're just trying to shorten that reaction time. So ultimately you start acting on those thoughts because our instincts are good. Our instincts are one of the reasons we're still on this planet. So over hundreds of thousands of years, we've developed these instincts, this intuition. And for whatever reason, we tend not to trust it in moments where we get nervous or stressed. But in reality, those instincts are there to help you survive. So we wire our clients to start acting on those instincts and not putting up that barrier or saying, oh, well, how are people going to perceive me? How are people going to like this? Instead, just speaking your mind, being more comfortable with your thoughts and with your words.
No doubt. With regards to the podcast, too, I've been listening to you guys' podcasts. I'm going to say probably 7 or 8 months. Honestly, I did not know that that's why you guys created a podcast to help people with social skills and confidence. I just find it really interesting, and you guys have, like I said, phenomenal guests. So that's kind of what sucked me into it. But let's talk about that then. When it comes to social skills, and because it's certainly going to help a lot of our listeners in confidence, because most of our people are most of my listeners are salespeople. People know when you show up and you don't have confidence, right? They can sense that. What would you say to those people that are listening right now? What are some things they can do to work on that?
Let's start with confidence, because that really is the core mission of our week-long program. So we run a week-long training program in Los Angeles where our clients actually stay with us. We have a beautiful house and they stay with us for the week, and we run them through our curriculum that includes some exercises in class where we videotape them having conversations and break down their nonverbal communication as well as their verbal communication. We take them out in the real world to some local places where they get an opportunity to interact with strangers. So the goal of the week is to interact with 200 people. And we do that for a very specific reason, because at the Art of Charm, we believe that confidence is made up of 3 components. Number 1 is your attitude or belief in yourself. You can't be confident if you believe that things are not going to work out. And, I've been trying to learn how to play golf. So one of my favorite analogies is a professional golfer. If we think of a professional golfer as he's approaching the first tee at the tournament, right, where does he believe he's going to hit the ball? Well, a professional golfer believes he's going to hit the ball straight and accurate. Whereas an amateur golfer is already thinking, oh man, I'm probably going to hit it in the trees, or I better watch out for my slice, and thinking about all these things that could go wrong. The professional is already confident in himself. He has a belief that when he swings the club, the ball's going to go where he wants it to go. A lot of us, when it comes to socializing with people, when it comes to approaching that prospect in sales, right? If we don't have that belief in ourselves, that belief that we're going to close the deal, that belief that people are interested in us, that belief that that woman is attracted to us, then we're not confident. We're lacking confidence. So we really structure the week with the coaches to make sure that we instill this belief in yourself. Now, the great part about it is I've also not only been doing this podcast, but doing this training program for 10 years. I've worked with thousands of individuals who suffered from social anxiety in person, and I've helped them overcome it. So now our clients can put some belief in the Art of Charm system that we have, the Art of Charm way, so that not only are maybe they're not sure of themselves, but they can believe that, hey, if AJ or Johnny, my coaches, are telling me to do something, I can start believing that that's going to work. So that's the first component to building this confidence. The second component is knowledge. You can't be confident in an area you're not knowledgeable in. That's why a lot of us are confident in our career, because over time we've gained all of this knowledge. We went to school. We did high-level training. We were constantly honing our craft. So knowledge is a huge component of our boot camp as well, where we spend the week giving you the best patterns to socialization that science has shown. And we've spent years and years testing these things with ourselves personally, as well as our clients, to make sure that the patterns are easy to recognize and easy to operate under. And then the last component of building that confidence is experience. And that's where the interacting with 200 people comes in. If you've never swung a golf club before, it's going to be very hard for you to be confident. But if you've swung a golf club 1,000 times, you're not going to start worrying about things that just don't happen when you swing a golf club. So a lot of times when we lack confidence, we lack some belief in ourselves, we lack some information, and ultimately we lack some experience doing those things. So when it comes to sales, right, obviously a salesperson needs to start believing that he can make the sale. He needs to be studying the best sales material available. And obviously you had Grant Cardone on. There are a number of guys who are experts in the field of sales studying that information. But then ultimately you can't get good at sales if you don't pick up the phone, if you're not prospecting, if you're not cold calling, right? You just can't be that confident sales guy if you've never actually closed someone. So we found that those three components make up confidence, and that's our cake equation. So confidence equals C. Attitude, knowledge, and experience is how you get that confidence.
So going back to salespeople listening, so let's say somebody is a newer real estate agent and they don't have any sales and they don't have any experience. What are they going to do? Just fake it till they make it, or what does the person do in that situation?
Well, that's where you got to absorb all the knowledge available. That's where you start. You start listening to people who are more knowledgeable than you, and you seek out a mentor.
So you educate yourself.
Yeah, and just like my coaching with social skills, clients come to us to mentor them. You seek out a mentor. You find someone who's already successful in the field of real estate, and you say, hey, I'll work for free for 3 months, 6 months. I'll help you make sales. I'll help you do lead gen. Do an unpaid internship. Learn the way that they get up in the morning, what they say to themselves before they pick up the phone. Learn the way that they interact with those potential prospects, those home buyers, when they're out on those showings. Those are all things that you need experience, and you need that belief system to ultimately combine with that knowledge to be successful, to be confident. And there are a variety of successful salespeople out there that are constantly looking for mentees that would love to impart this knowledge on someone else. So finding someone 2-3 steps ahead of you and absorbing what they have to give you so that you can start believing in yourself because they've taught you a way that helped them believe in themselves, and ultimately following them, shadowing them to get that experience.
So what about the person, AJ, that's thinking, you know what, I have plenty of confidence right now, and I know my business, and I've got experience. So why would I want to take one of your boot camps or your training?
Well, top performers know they can always get better, much like we talked about earlier. And the only way to get better is to have someone outside look at what's going on and see if there's any room for improvement. Sometimes you get too close to the problem, and it's very difficult for you to see those blind spots that you have. And that's really the power of coaching. And listen, we've interviewed over 600 experts, professionals in their field, and almost all of them say two things to us. Number one, they surround themselves with positive people. They cut negative people out of their lives, the people that don't believe in them, the people that don't build them up. And number two, they sought out mentorship and coaching. And it's so funny, even now I take training programs to get better at public speaking, to get better at podcasting, to get better presenting myself, even though I consider myself a coach and one of the tops in the field. And you'll find that in any area, right? You look at a professional athlete, every top golfer has a coach. And the coach is there to help them see their blind spots, see some areas that maybe they weren't considering because they were too close to the problem.
Yeah. Hey, Masters, we're going to get you right back to the show. I want to tell you about my website, davidihill.com. We have everything you need there, from phone numbers to leads. And if you're looking for talent, ZipRecruiter. Everything's there. Just go to davidihill.com/affiliates. And here's the awesome thing. I am going to be opening up my schedule for a select group of salespeople and real estate agents who want to take their business to the next level, guys. Here's the thing. We're going to talk about lead generation, understanding behavior at that deep level, how to ask great questions, not just that, but how to listen, and then connection, and finally, follow-up, guys. 70% of all sales comes from follow-up. So we're going to help you build some ironclad systems for follow-up. Now listen, this is only for the serious people. If you are absolutely serious about doing some individual coaching and taking your business to the next level, go to davidihill.com/coaching. Fill out an application, and I'm offering a free 20-minute consultation to see if we're a fit. Again, davidihill.com/coaching. You rock. Enjoy the rest of the show. I mean, what do you see when it comes back to confidence? What do you see as some of the, say biggest challenges with salespeople when it comes to confidence?
Well, I think lack of confidence leads to inaction. And the only way you're going to close deals, you're going to make sales is taking action. And unfortunately, what happens is it's when you lack that confidence, it's very easy to make excuses for why things aren't working. It's more difficult to make reasons and choices to take action. So that's, again, one of the core principles of the podcast and the boot camp is we want all of our advice to be actionable, because action is the enemy of that anxiety, is the enemy of that lack of confidence. If you're taking action, you start putting some points on the board, all of a sudden you start feeling good. You're more likely to pick up the phone. You're more likely to prospect. You're more likely to walk into someone's office and try to sell them something. So action is the rule of the day. And even when we've had a big sales team within the company to help us sell these boot camps, action was always the most important thing for those sales guys. Get those phone calls in early. Don't sit there and wait until the afternoon or try to find the perfect time. Take action, and action leads to results.
Yeah, no doubt. You must know Mel Robbins, right? The 5-second rule. Are you familiar with her book? Yeah. Phenomenal. Had her on my podcast, and I literally have all my teams. That's when people start getting out of action. It's just like Mel Robbins, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just pick up the phone, make a call, do something, right?
Exactly. You're not going to make anything happen if you don't step on the field. Action is everything.
So what, when it comes to, go back to social skills, what are some of the biggest misconceptions when people hear social skills? Because I know when I hear it, I'm like, oh man, I've got great social skills. I've been doing this a long time. What do you guys hear? I mean, you guys are the experts at this.
Well, I think when we hear social skills, we hear listening. I feel like a lot of us want to get our own words out. We want to be heard. We want everyone else to think we're amazing. So what ends up happening is we put way too much emphasis on ourselves and we become very poor listeners. And that's why one of the biggest skill sets that you learn taking the Art of Charm Bootcamp is how to be a more effective listener. The reason being there's two layers of context to any conversation. There's the logical layer of context, and then there's the emotional layer of context. And as you know from sales, right? People don't buy because of logic. People buy because of emotion. And if you're not a good emotional listener, if you are not good at picking up the emotional context of the conversation, you're going to have difficulty selling your product, selling yourself, connecting with people. What we really teach is how to listen to people on an emotional level. Now, for most men, that's a scary thought, right? What do you mean listen on an emotional level? I don't care about people's emotions. I just want to get the problem solved. I want to get the job done. I want to get the check. But again, emotions are what spark people's interests, are what ultimately spark sales, are what close the deal. So if you're only paying attention to the logical context of the conversation, you're missing out on the key component that's going to help you succeed. When you can understand where other people are coming from emotionally and keep your emotions in check, you're going to be a very effective salesman. You're going to be very effective at getting people to take interest in you. And ultimately, you're going to be charismatic. So that's really what we teach when we talk about social skills. And the easiest way to think of this is a very simple formula that we give our clients when they're starting out. And this is the conversation formula. And I think this formula also works in sales. And it's quite simply, to start a conversation with someone, you have to showcase interest in them in order for them to take interest in you. And the easiest way to take interest in someone else is to ask them a question. So if you want to start a conversation with a stranger, if you want to start a conversation with a prospect, if you want to start a conversation with a friend, ask them a question. And now here's the key. When you listen to their answer, you can't be thinking of your next question. You can't be thinking of your witty thing to say. You have to actually be listening to the emotional context and the logical context. And then the last part of the equation is we're always going to answer their response in a statement. And that keeps you from going down the question train, and it allows the other person to hear that you're listening to them, that you have heard what they've said on a holistic way. again, emotional and logical.
Can you give us
context,
an example? Give us an example of answering their response in a statement.
Yes. One of the most common things we hear when we're out is guys will ask, hey, how do I go talk to that woman, right? I want to get to know her. What do I say? We simply say, go up to her, ask her what she's drinking, ask her how her day's going, ask her any question that comes to mind, who, what, where, when, how, why. So we'll ask, hey, what are you drinking? She'll say, oh, I'm drinking one of my favorite tequila cocktails. It's a tequila sunrise, right? Well, right off the bat, she says it's one of her favorite cocktails, and tequila is the main ingredient. So most of us, when we get nervous, when we get a little anxious, we go, oh, well, what kind of tequila is that? Or we ask even another question, right? We seek further information. But those of us who are charismatic can right away go, oh, how can I relate to tequila? Either I've been to Mexico and I love tequila, or, I'm not really good with cocktails, but that sounds really good, so you can help me pick my next cocktail. Either one of those, right? I've been to Mexico. I enjoy tequila, or I'm not really good at picking cocktails. Sounds like you know what you're doing. You can help me pick my next cocktail. Either one of those is a response and a statement where now we're having a conversation and it's effortless. When we find ourselves asking questions, asking the prospect question after question after question, they start to feel like they're getting all of the energy pulled out of them.
It's like an interrogation, right?
Exactly. And everyone starts to clam up, get even more nervous under those situations. So we're always practicing this conversation formula of if we ask a question, we have to listen to their answer, and then we always have to respond in the form of a statement. And what I've found in my experience of teaching this is most of us will only have to ask 2 questions. And after we've taken enough interest with those 2 questions, we've given solid statements as our answer, the other person is now going to become interested in us. Dale Carnegie said it best. In order to become interesting, you have to be interested. It's the same thing with your prospects. In order to get your prospect interested in you, you have to take a little interest in them.
So let's try to come up with I want to think of a scenario in real estate for something that's meat and potatoes for our listeners where they could listen emotionally, like what you talked about. So let's say somebody wants to price their house at, I don't know, $100,000 over what it's worth. How would you ask an emotional question in there or listen from an emotional perspective?
Well, the question would be, what is the reason that you're selling your house? What's going on in your life that you want to sell it? And that's where they're going to start to fill in that blank of, the reason that they're selling their house. And then I'm looking for the emotional context that's leading them to believe that they could get $100,000, right? And it could often be that they're hurting for money or something else happened tragically to them that they need this extra cash. And that's why they're willing to go above and beyond what your recommendation would be. So again, it's paying attention to the emotional context. Why is this person feeling this desire to sell the house beyond a number that any real estate agent feels is reasonable? Usually there's an emotional pull to that, right? They either feel like they put all their blood, sweat, and tears. I just remodeled the kitchen myself, and damn it, this is worth an extra $100,000. Or they feel like there's an emotional reason, something else is driving them, right? They had some tragedy happen and they got to sell this house. They need that money so that they can send their kid to college, whatever the case may be. I'm looking for that emotional context because that's where we need to be having the conversation. That's how I'm going to be able to handle this. If I tell the prospect logically, hey, listen, there's 10 other houses on this block that all sold for $100,000 less. There's no way you're going to be able to get that $100,000. Well, I didn't answer his emotion, so he's not going to listen to me. He's going to find another real estate agent.
So does it come down to maybe finding out like what's important, like what's most important about getting $100,000 for your house, and then based on what they tell you, you're going to dig deeper on that?
Exactly. And again, it's the emotion that's driving them. There always is an emotional reason behind our actions. There's an emotion that's causing this response in us, whether it's flight from the neighborhood, whether it's they need to buy an even more expensive house, and that's why they need to get more for their original house. They feel like they threw a year's worth of work in the renovation. Whatever the case may be, that emotional context is very important if you are going to hook them and sell them or allow them to connect with you so that they trust you to sell their house, list their house, etc.
Love it, my friend. All right. Well, hey, I appreciate you being on the podcast today. What's the best way for our listeners to get in touch with you guys?
Obviously, check out the Art of Charm podcast. There are a number of episodes that are interview focused. We also have a specific series inside of our podcast called the Art of Charm Toolbox episodes. And those are the episodes where we dig deeper into these social skills. We talk for hours and hours again about building confidence, having conversations, building rapport, connecting with people, making friends. So the Art of Charm Toolbox theartofcharm.com/toolbox is the place to find all of those great episodes of me and Jordan jamming out on those topics. And if you have any questions for me personally, you could always email me, aj@theartofcharm.com. Happy to answer any of your listeners' questions and help them out.
And what question do you get asked most, AJ?
The one question that I get asked most is, why did I leave graduate school? Obviously, Jordan and I had career paths carved out for us. He was a lawyer. He'd finished law school, got his JD, and passed the bar in New York. And I was working towards this cancer PhD, but yet here we are 10 years later. He's no longer practicing law. I'm not a biologist. So that's the most common question we get is, why did you leave your career? And I feel like a lot of people have this point in their life where they're not happy with the choices they made, but they're not sure that they can exit their career. I've heard a lot of different terms, golden handcuffs, etc. And for us, it was a breaking point where we both suffered from some imposter syndrome, where we felt we didn't belong. We felt that we weren't worthy of the opportunity that was given to us. And we made a choice to try something else. And we were fortunate enough that we threw everything into the podcast, and it grew into this podcast coaching company that's been wildly successful.
Congratulations, man. And listen, the final question on all my episodes is, on our listeners' path to sales mastery, what's the one thing that you want them to take from this interview today?
The one thing I want them to take is listen to the emotional context of your prospect, because that is where the sale is going to happen. You're not going to be able to logic them into buying you or your products.
Brilliant, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It was great.
Hey, Masters, you guys know how important health and nutrition is to me. I just want to talk to you a little bit about products I use called AdvoCare. I've been using these products for about a year and a half now, mostly just for energy. They've got a really awesome drink. It's called Spark. If you want to check out anything, I would tell you, go check out the energy drink Spark. That's what I did for, like I said, almost a year and a half without even trying any of their other products. And then this past January, a bunch of us, January 4th, decided we were going to do the 24-day challenge, which is a 10-day cleanse and then 14 days of just really healthy eating, vitamins, meal replacement, just awesome 24 days just to kind of get yourself on track and get into some right habits. So Richie Ryan did it with us. Guys, he lost, today's February 5th. I think he's at 24 pounds lost since January 4th. Melissa at our office lost 6 pounds. Min at our office lost 5 pounds. Guys, listen, it's amazing. Regardless, if your goal is losing weight, my goal wasn't losing weight. I did the challenge just so I could experience it. And, I lost a few pounds, but now I put some weight back on because I started using some of the supplements and the protein powder and all the other stuff. So now I've gained about 3 pounds of muscle and just feel awesome. My energy's through the roof. So whether you're looking for energy or you're looking for just wellness, they've got some amazing green products that I love taking before I go to bed. Or if you're looking for performance, athletic products, we've got the athletic performance products. And then just active, if you're an active adult, maybe getting a little older in the age and you want to just keep everything working the right way and functioning. Listen, Gary Keller said it best. If you don't take care of your body, where are you going to live? And I just love that. So, hey, I just ask you to check out AdvoCare's products. I'm a distributor, so I'd love to help you, talk to you about your nutrition and health goals. You go to livelongersmarter.com, livelongersmarter.com. If you love what you heard on this episode and you're looking for more techniques, tools, strategies, and ideas, simply go to thesalesplaybook.net and get yourself a copy of the Sales Playbook. You can also go directly to Amazon, type in the Sales Playbook, and buy your copy today.
You are listening to One More Sale with your host, David I. Hill, author of the Sales Playbook. Get your copy at www.thesalesplaybook.net.